I just got pictures.
Okay, we are going to call to order this regular meeting of the Miami City Council for Tuesday, May 27th, 2014. Item number 2 is public input and unscheduled personal appearances. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council on any of the agenda items? There being none. Item number 3, ratify employment contract for fiscal year 14-15 with George Harrelson. I think, David, this is simply, we had actually approved the contract with some modified language. We just didn't have the formal document with the language changed, correct? And
Yes,
so
sir.
all this is that same document that we approved,
Yes.
typed to reflect the change.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions, anyone? Comments? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the ratification?
Make a motion to approve it.
And a second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Johnson,
Aye.
Weston,
Aye.
Sharbit,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye. Item number 4, designate an authorized agent from the city for the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund. Notice of authorized agent form. Cindy? How are you?
I'm good.
Did you just get back from vacation?
No.
Oh, never mind.
Okay. What this is for is Jeff was on as our authorized agent with OMRF.
Okay.
When it's their normal protocol, when they have someone that is their authorized agent that resigns or is no longer employed here, he had been issued a PIN number, which is what we use in order to do the retirement deferrals.
Mhm.
Okay, they have to suspend that PIN number because in order to make sure that the integrity of all of the data that's at the website, it stays intact. So what we have to do is we just have to authorize a new agent, which Jill would be the logical choice for that.
Okay.
And Kimberly and I are on there just as someone that can receive correspondence, which that's to enroll new people. But the council has to approve that authorized
And
agent.
so is this authorizing the mayor's signature on the document? Is that what it is then?
This is
or-
actually authorizing Jill as the new authorized agent. She has to put her signature on there as the authorized agent, and you have to sign in order to make that go through.
Okay.
So
That's
yes.
all there is to it, just so we can conduct daily business.
And, David, is this, any questions or concerns about?
No. No.
And this is per their procedure.
Yes, it's
Anytime
just-
someone says, I'm
It's
not gonna
because
be,
it-
I mean, it's gonna be
yes.
down the road a ways, but I'm not gonna be here, then that's their process.
Yes, because what they do is they issue a PIN number to each municipality,
Okay.
and that person can designate people to use it,
Okay.
but they also have it. And so, since he has resigned, he's still here, but he has submitted resignation. They do not want the PIN number to be under his name.
Okay.
They want it to be under someone
Yeah,
else's.
there's no negative implication.
No,
involved.
it's just
Okay, that's what
a
was my
standard
concern.
procedure.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Need a motion?
Yeah, Jill will be our designee, and then Cindy and
Kimberly Reyes.
Kimberly will have access to the information, be able to receive information.
I move to designate as the authorized agent for the city of Miami in matters pertaining to the plan and the fund to centralize in one person the local administration and coordination of plan activities.
You're supposed to fill in the blank.
Well, there's 3 of them in there.
Just Jill's name will be the authorized
Jill
agent.
Fitzgibbon.
And I second that.
Sharbit,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Weston.
Aye.
I do have a quick question.
Okay.
What if our city manager and Jill are both out? What happens in that situation?
We wait for her to come back for a signature, and basically all that empowers her to do is, like, if we have a new enrollee to put in the retirement plan, or we have someone that terminates or resigns in order to have their funds sent to them. There's normally not an emergency
Okay.
situation for this. It has nothing to do with any kind of financial decisions or anything like that. It's just basic day to day.
Okay.
So.
Okay. If there's nothing else on that item, item number 5 is update on request for proposal for third-party administrator services for the City of Miami Health Plan. Kim?
Hi. Okay. a few months ago, we started talking about the RFP. We've had the same TPA for quite a few years, and David Powell is here today to answer any questions that you all may have. And what Mr. Bishop said was we had not sent this out for bid in quite a few years, and we needed to do that. This is not something that I had dealt with, and felt like we probably needed to get some professional opinion to try to get that drafted.
The RFP.
Yes, the RFP to send out. Jeff was concerned, and we had many discussions about going to a vendor to ask them to help us draft the RFP when they would in turn be bidding on the project. And we just wanted to make sure there was no kind of a conflict of interest. So what he had directed me to do is to go ahead and attempt to do the RFP, which I did. Used some other formats from other communities. But last week before he left, I had a discussion with him that I still felt pretty strongly we needed some professional input on the RFP. So what happened is David Powell from BMI or TPA sent us a sample. Jeff asked me to make sure that I had not only David prepare a sample, but have 2 other vendors also review it so that we could get input from multiple vendors and wouldn't have any kind of a conflict. So Cindy Vanover sent the sample out to 2 other vendors today, asked them to have the information back by Friday. And then from that point, we will be ready to finalize the document, and I would feel more comfortable if we also sent it to our benefits attorney. I'm sure David would probably agree with that, and just let him review it, and then Randy will be ready to send it out. I apologize it's taken so long. It's just something I had not done, and Jeff agreed that he would probably feel more comfortable too if we approached it with 3 different vendors. Then there would not be any kind of a conflict.
So I had asked for this to be on the agenda because I know this is something that we've talked about for a while, and I wanted Kim to have an opportunity to update us. And because we do have a deadline looming, we wanted to make sure we were moving forward. I had asked them to ask David to be available by phone, but I appreciate you taking the effort to be here tonight, David, because I had a couple of questions that came up last week, and I certainly didn't want to act precipitously without the council's involvement. And now we have item number 9 also, Kim. So is that where?
That's where I thought you would ask David questions if you had them. And what I've directed everyone to do is, from this point moving forward, to go ahead and interact with Cindy Vanover, since she's our benefits rep.
Okay.
And to be truthful, Cindy's had 20 years of benefit experience, and she's really the one that needs to be interacting one-on-one with the vendors. So they have that, and she is on top of that. We should have all the information back by Friday, and then be ready to try to move forward next week.
So if you get it Friday and then you send it to Mr. Pamphronis,
Yes.
and give him a few days to review, then certainly towards the end of the week, hopefully,
Yes.
which would be 6/5 or 6/6, I can't remember exactly, but somewhere in there. What I'd like to do is go ahead. I'm going to take item 9 up next, just to keep these in sequence while we're talking about. And Kim, go ahead and stay up there and stay available if you did. David, would you come up too, please, and I'll explain to the council the question that you asked that kind of prompted this further discussion. As part of this process every year, David, on our behalf, goes out to the reinsurer, which is the insurance sitting on top of our self-insured fund, and solicits bids. And we got a bid back this year that I think was 1/3% increase. Is that correct, David? Which is a good bid. And David encouraged us to go ahead and bind that. And the implication of that is that once we bind it, even though July 1 is still over a month away, if something happened tomorrow, if something terrible happened, and we had an enormous expense, they would still be bound by those rates. Okay, so there's a benefit to binding if you're going forward. And so I had asked Jeff, and I'm not sure if he spoke to you, David, or who, but I had asked Jeff to find out, well, if we go ahead and bind, does that obligate us, number one, to BMI as a TPA? And I think the answer he came back to me on that was, we have a month-to-month contract.
That's
Is
correct.
that,
It really doesn't bind you to anything, Rudy. It just stops the underwriting process. So any new illnesses that came up, they could not change their bid due to that. You don't have to send any money. You're really not obligating yourself to anything.
the second question I had was, if we're not obligated to BMI, assuming we go through this RFP process and the council decides to make a change, are we obligated to the reinsurer since we've bound the insurance?
Their contract states that they have a right to approve whoever you use for a TPA.
Okay.
So as long as you chose somebody, reputable with experience, they'd probably be fine with it. We've never been declined.
But would we have the option of changing our mind if we chose a different TPA and they said, well, here's what we think is a better deal, or are we tied to that reinsurer for that year?
Nice thing about insurance is it stops when you stop paying.
Okay.
Okay, so that's all it takes.
Then my last question related to that, would you explain a little bit about the run-out period and whether or not that comes into play in any way in this scenario?
In terms of the reinsurance,
Yes, if
No.
we got to July 30 and we did stop paying, okay? What happens? Explain what a run-out period is for the benefit of the council, and then
Okay.
explain whether or not that run-out period is impacted.
the runout is a term we use for claims that get paid in the future that maybe were incurred today. And so if your plan year ended on June 30th, any claim that had been incurred prior to that date that was paid after July 1st, we would call it a runout claim. And typically when you change TPAs, we say bye, and then you say, well, who's going to pay our runout claims? The new carrier might, and they charge a fee to do that, or you might come back to me and say, we'd like for you to process all the runout claims. What will you charge us to do that? So somebody has to be contracted to process those claims that were incurred in one contract year and paid in another.
And is ours a 12-15 contract?
Your stop loss contract is a 12-12.
Okay, so
That
there is no
means
run-out.
There is no runout for stop loss claims.
And so, if a claim was incurred on June 29 and it's subject to be paid in July sometime, how does that work in the normal course of business if you're our TPA?
Well,
So there's no run out, but our reinsurance is still on the hook, correct?
it's on the hook as long as we write a check by June 30th. And it's because of the contract type being a 12-12 contract. So we're aware of those claims already. We get a phone call when they come in through the emergency room door or at the doctor's office and they want to make sure you're still insured. So if we know that claim has been incurred, but we haven't seen it yet, we just call the provider. And they can email it or fax it. And if they tell us my fax machine's down, or the bills don't go out till Monday or whatever, we just tell them, read us the amount off your screen, and we dummy up a claim and pay it. That's only necessary if the claim will qualify for reinsurance reimbursement. If it's a $100 claim, we don't
Right,
care.
so it's a small number of the claims where you would have some exposure theoretically.
That's correct.
And so if we had a new TPA that wasn't necessarily familiar with everything that had been going on, then that burden would fall to staff to make sure that here's a potential reinsurance claim, and we need to make sure, well, I guess with the 12-12 it doesn't matter because the new TPA wouldn't be responsible for that.
That's right.
And why do we have a 12-12 instead of a 12-15, for example? Can you talk about the pros and
Because-
cons?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you, it's considerably more work for us to track
12-12?
those. Absolutely. We have to track them down, rush them through, but it saves you about 20% of the annual premium.
Okay.
And your annual premium, it's about $160,000. So for $30,000 savings to you, we don't mind staying until 6 o'clock on June 30th to get the work done.
So what you're telling me is there is no downside to the city to go ahead and bind the reinsurance.
None. You're really not obligated to even continue on July 1st. All you're doing is disclosing what we know. We run all current reports, who's been to the doctor for certain diagnoses. They've got cancer codes and aneurysm codes. We have to report all the people that are a potential stop-loss claim for the future. And then they review it and they say, yeah, that's the same information that we used when we quoted a month ago, so no change. Everybody's accepted. As soon as we got that email, then the window of risk is really closed.
Okay, Kim, in your conversations with other TPAs, has their description of the run-out period been consistent with David's description? Or their potential for exposure? Or have you had those conversations?
Jill and I had one Friday, but I'm not sure if that TPA understands our plan like David understands our plan. So,
Probably not.
You know, right.
Yeah.
And so it was dissimilar, but I'm not sure if we're talking about apples and apples.
And the reason I bring that up, David, is because we were talking this through and wanting to present to the council tonight, and one of the other interested parties said, well, but you better make sure you don't get in trouble with your run-out period. And, you know, I haven't talked about run-out periods in 5 years, so I needed to be refreshed myself.
The reason you would be asked that question, the big majority of TPAs, and I know lots of them, I meet with about 300 owners a couple times a year, they will tell you, we don't chase claims. We don't care if the claim is not in our mailbox June 30th. It's not our fault and not our problem. So to protect yourself against the run-out gap, you better buy a 1512 policy and spend the extra $30,000 premium. That takes the worry off of the TPA. They get 90 days to catch up.
Right. Okay. Questions?
So the 1512, but we save $30,000 a year, providing we're with someone
That's willing to do that.
that's willing to do that and that understands that.
Mhm.
It's paying attention on our behalf. And so the question that I'm asking of the council, and we're meeting again next week, so we don't have to decide tonight if you want to think about it a bit, but every day that between now and June 30 that goes by, there's the potential that we could have a car accident or anything else, an employee, and that would then, if we haven't bound the reinsurance, that would go into our experience.
But anything that happened before then is all covered under the existing
Yeah, I mean, anything that
insurance.
hap-
Yes.
If there's
Even if
anything-
there's payout afterwards.
Yes.
Right. We report everything that we have the information on.
Well, I think you asked a different question than what I answered.
You said yes, that was okay.
I know, but I thought about your question a little more. David said that even if it occurred prior to June 30, if we don't pay for it, if something happened dramatically on June 29, we got to get that check in because we're on a 12-12 plan. And that's a conscious decision that was made however long ago. And something that we need to talk about as we work on this renewal. Is it worth the savings to have the risk, et cetera? Up to now, it has been. I don't think there's probably been a time in 14 years that we've gotten home. But there's always that potential, and when in hindsight, you'd say, well, why didn't those guys do that last year?
Well, let me tell you, since you have a $75,000 deductible in your plan, you can't really incur $75,000 in the last 6 hours of your policy. You'd have to start a couple of days before to run up a bill that big. So you're not. It's very unlikely you'll incur that claim. And I think you were really asking about when it gets paid. If it got paid before June 30th, it's a $200,000 bill. It's covered under this contract year. But this disclosure Rudy's talking about means the carrier is going to say, okay, we're paying for this big car wreck. Is it likely that this person is going to need a lot of expensive care next year? And if they believe they are, they have a right to set a higher deductible on that person. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
If we haven't bound it.
If we have not disclosed, then they say, you got to tell us everything you know.
But you don't allow, once that happens, the insurer at that point is responsible for that until that's closed. Not the person that, not the new insurer coming in, correct?
Well, they'll start over on July 1st with a new stop-loss deductible no matter what you do. It's only a 1-year contract.
We had an employee, it's called a laser, we had an employee that was in a situation like that, they had a terminal illness, and our deductible for that individual employee 1 year was $80,000. Because they looked ahead and knew what the expense was going to be, and so they have the ability to do that. And that's a more likely scenario, not that a car wreck's not possible, but those are the kinds of things that can happen. But if they're bound, then they can't do that because the rates are set, correct?
They'll have already accepted everyone,
Right.
so they can't go back
Now,
and change.
and this is what happened in our case. This employee was sick for several years, and so the next year rolled around, and that's when they got lasered. So basically, we're just protecting against, by binding now, we're protecting against a catastrophic event occurring between now and then that would affect our rates. And as David has described it and Kim has described it, there's not a downside to doing so. And we can act on that tonight, or we can wait till next week. We just take another week's worth of risk. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are.
The way it's presented, it sounds like the binding would be the way to go. What are you suggesting, Mayor?
That's what I think.
I
That's
see
my
taking
opinion.
the risk. I don't. But that's just me.
So,
What'd you say?
I don't see taking the risk.
so what a motion would sound like then is a motion to authorize, and Cindy or Kim, would it be me as plan administrator, or who would sign that document? I think David said that actually.
Anybody can sign it and say, this is all we know. All we're doing is disclosing all the claims that have been filed and the people who are off work on medical leave.
So Kim, as HR person,
Yeah.
could sign it.
Sure.
So we would be authorizing Kim to sign that document and basically bind.
What's, whatever.
David, thoughts?
David.
Or, I'm
To
sorry,
me, it's
we
no
want
David
David
or
or
Jill.
Jill?
Jill.
David or Jill,
No
what do you
brainer.
think?
Jill, do you have thoughts or concerns?
Does this affect the deductible on the employees in any way?
The employees don't even know what the stop loss is in most cases. They just know they've got your plan deductible. They don't know 75,000 is the
Right.
limit to the city's.
But if you change TPAs in the middle of the year, does that affect the
Employees?
deductible?
Yes, it does. There's confusion and claims get sent to the wrong place for a while and duplicates.
And then the deductible will have to start over.
No, they don't have
No.
to start over on a new deductible.
Okay. I'd also, does Cindy, do you or Kim have any questions? No? Okay.
All you're doing is authorizing us to accept the commitment for next year. Not from the TPA, but from the, I always want to say co-insurer.
The carrier.
But the carrier, right.
Okay, so then I make a motion that we authorize city staff to sign the reinsurance document.
I'll
Disclosure.
second that.
It's a reinsurance disclosure statement.
Reinsurance disclosure statement. Thank you, Cindy.
I believe Neil seconded it.
We have a second. Roll call, please.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Schultz,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Weston,
Aye.
Sharbit.
Aye.
Okay, I have one question. Was that
Sure.
was that document in the packet?
Mm,
I have it in my office.
Doesn't have to be in the packet.
Okay.
would you provide us all with a copy, though? Not this minute, Cindy, but just make sure we all get a copy. Okay.
We've been told they can't vote on a document unless it's in our packet. Although this is just signing it, but it's a document they haven't seen.
Is it in our packet? I It don't may know. be in our packet.
We're authorizing staff signature.
I think
But it's not a problem.
Okay.
No, it's not.
In the past, I think what Jill may be concerned about is in the past, it's been a practice of the council often to not want to vote on a document, particularly a contract, if they haven't seen it. but it would appear to me that in this case, they're comfortable proceeding on this basis. It's not a legal requirement.
I think it actually is in your document. Well,
Okay.
it's not.
The motion has carried. Thank you, David, very
I'll give you
much.
one quick,
Mhm.
quick good report. 47 weeks into this current plan year, the health plan's running 25% below the projected cost.
Awesome. We need a break because we just made up a big chunk from, it's carried over several years, but
Running very smooth right now.
good. Thank you, David.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, David.
Item number 6, update on Lawson salary study. That's Kim again.
Okay. Originally, this started really almost a year ago, and the city manager decided that we needed to really look at our pay structure. And it's something that's needed to be done for a long time. When I first came, we had a step grade process that really hasn't been used in quite a few years. Jeff was familiar with Annette at Fox Lawson. He had used her at some other areas. She is very good. We started with doing every position that we have in the city. That person did a PDQ, which is a position description questionnaire. And so every employee has had input into this process, what specifically their job duties are, what the qualifications they think are. At that point, all of those PDQs went to her. She sent that back to me in what is called a draft class structure. And that has been finalized. Actually, this morning I said, that's it. We've made all the changes we need to make. That is her compiling all the information from the PDQs. As part of this, she looks at the FLSA standard and lets us know, per the information we've provided, whether it's an exempt or a non-exempt position, which is really important. So as part of the study, we're going to get an audit, which we need badly, describing, do we have each position classified correctly? So at this point, what she's done is provided me with a survey structure that explains, these are the entities I'm going to survey. This is how the survey will be conducted. Jill and I are meeting on Thursday to finalize that and get that to her. I have provided her with the listing of comparable municipalities in our area and also private sector businesses. Also provided her with the 2013 and the 2014 OML salary survey. So there are a lot of different factors that she will use to input into this. Once we finalize that Thursday, and I don't see any reason why we won't, there's really nothing in it that I disagreed with, she will come back to us within a week and we'll have a sample survey of what she's going to send out to these entities that we have to approve. And as soon as we approve that, she will send us a document back that gives us the time frame. Originally, she had said it could be done within 6 to 8 weeks.
Send out to which entities? The ones that we're surveying?
They're divided
or she's
between,
on our behalf?
Yes, her on our behalf, even though we've provided the information to her. She has it divided by public sector and private sector. But we have to approve the final survey so we know what's going out to these entities when she surveys them.
Okay.
And then she will come back to us basically with a lot of different information based on what she finds. Not just the salary range, but like I said, the FLSA, classification and different things that we really need. I feel good about this. This will be the second one I've been through since I've been here, and what I think is different about this one is the employees had input. The last go-round as a manager, I wrote all of those descriptions for my employees. And so what that opened up is they had a chance to have their input. And then in this last round, we sent out this draft class structure to managers. And I went through a list with Annette of about 25 things that I questioned. We made some changes. So I feel like we have a good, accurate document that she's going to be using as a survey tool. And I would say within 2 weeks, we can present the final timeline to the council, once she sends that to us, so you will know what kind of time frame we're looking at.
Okay, so you started out, before I interrupted you, saying we thought this would take 6 to 8 weeks, but.
Well, it depends on what kind of responses she gets. And she's been upfront with me that private sector is a lot more difficult to get data from than public sector. I find when we're looking for information like this from other municipalities, they're more than willing to share because they want us to share with them. But the private sector is a little bit harder, so she really says it depends on what kind of response she gets. One thing I think when you think with a salary survey, that she will take every position we have and she will survey. That's not what this is. This is a statistical percentage of jobs. And then she uses a lot of different factors based on the market, and then she'll come back with the final figures.
What's considered the market?
The private and the public, looking at the
area?
different surveys. Well, what I did is I used not only the state of Oklahoma for her to survey, but I included municipalities within 100 miles of us, comparable in size. I even drilled it down to looking at municipalities that had bargaining units and just really trying to make a good comparison. Numbers of employees, different things like that. So,
And so, 6 to 8 weeks, we'll say at the outside, hopefully, to get the information back.
Mhm.
She'll compile it, forward it, so let's say that's 12 weeks. And then, what are we gonna have in 12 weeks? Just the survey results?
the survey results, one thing that I kind of misunderstood is I thought this will be great. She'll come back to us with all these new job descriptions. Well, we're going to have to write our own job descriptions because it's cost prohibitive. But what we will get from her is data. And a good, on each position, a good statistical data, to really have a hard look at what that position is worth.
And so, the information that we'll have at the end of 12 weeks, will it be in a format that says, okay, here's this position, here's a range of pay for that position, and maybe here's where Joe fits currently in that range of pay?
Yes,
Is that kind of what we're
Yes.
expecting to see for each position at the city?
yes,
And so we'll know if there are outliers either way
right.
within each position, actually.
Right.
We'll know if they're an outlier or not.
Now, I will tell you that Mr. Bishop was, at first, when this whole thing started, really looking at that range, a low to high to mid salary range. But based on budget capacity, and Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he is leaning more towards trying to do some kind of a step grade, but based on the information that we receive from this. That was the ideal situation, but that's difficult with the budget capacity. Is that correct? I
That's
mean,
what
do
he
you?
said last
Okay.
week. Yep.
But yes, what you're looking for, Rudy, is what will be the end result. We will have that data.
And we think we'll have that in about 12 weeks.
I will definitely have a time frame back from her within 2, and then I will come back and let you
Okay.
know for sure.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for her, but that was important. I said, I really need you to give me some kind of a document that gives me a time frame so that, we can know when this whole thing will be finished.
Okay. So, not next week, but our meeting in 3 weeks, you should have that information for
Yes,
us.
I can bring you an update.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Any questions about methodology or anything else for Kim?
Nope, sounds good.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Kim.
thank you.
Item number 8, presentation on Shippers Association, and I believe this is going to be Mr. Brazil. We're going to take a very quick break while Jill tries to get him on the phone. You've got the city council here as well as Judy.
I'll let you
This
say.
is Mayor Schultz.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
Nice to
And
meet
to the
you.
rest of the members of the council.
Hello.
Hello?
Jeff as you know, I think Jeff's conveyed to you and probably Judy has, this has been a very long process. Going back, we were in a meeting this morning and Judy had documents showing when we started these conversations back in '98 in some form or another.
Yes, she was kind enough when you guys hired us on to go and get the line for you to share that with me, and I just thought, geez, I've seen so many stories like that. The railroads are just kind of strange to work with. But I was pleased that we were able to cut through that. The ticket there was my relationship with Matt Rose, the chairman of BN Santa Fe. So that prompted everybody else to start jumping through the hoops. And then Judy and Jeff and the rest of your crew did a great job at moving it forward. And now, unless I'm wrong, I was told by Jeff the other day, it's all over but the shouting in terms of the donations. So.
I think that's pretty much correct. I was in just a very brief meeting last week. Judy and actually Jeff were in a meeting talking with a potential short line operator, and I would just listened in a little bit, and I think that's I think you're right in your assessment.
I had a chance to be on the line with Dick Ebel. He is the VP in charge of all short lines. And I was dealing with him on another matter, but I asked him, slipped it into the conversation, what he thought of Motive Rail, which is the short line carrier. I spoke to Motive Rail when I started the project for you on getting the line, and because I wanted to know about the switch, if it was any good, and about the condition of the rail, because when I asked to be in Santa Fe for the line, I asked them also if they would give us enough rail to rehab it, and if they would give us other equipment that we would need on the property. And they didn't say no, so they chose to go after the line first. But one of our tactics and one of the things that's in my proposal to you right now is that I would go back and then try to get that. The rails retire, Mr. Mayor, they retire Class 1 rail every year, a certain amount of it from all along their tracks, and they recycle that into their terminal operations. But they occasionally give it to short line rails and to rails like this one that need rehabbing, where a short line operator is going to work on it. And that could save an awful lot of money going down the road for the rehab side.
Right.
Plus, they do also have excess equipment like road railers and other things that are used for rail, and they sometimes give that to the short lines as well. And that would have to be gifted to, not to the short line in this case, but to us, since you have the line. But that's, I think, a possibility to reduce the estimated $1 million rehab that needs
Jeff,
on the
this is
line.
David.
So
I just
that would be
grabbed
one
Jill's
thing we would
phone. She's
definitely
away from
pursue.
Horseshoe. I saw your
And
name.
it's great that you've already had the discussion with Motor.
Yeah, we've been,
The,
I think I've been in 2 or 3 meetings
Guy about the
with
rails
he and
first,
Judy
and
over
the,
the years.
speaker
He's
phone right
been interested in this project for a very long time also.
This is
Yeah, the B in Santa Fe gave him, in my book, was a high mark. Dick Ebel didn't know him, but he went back and checked with his staff and came back and said they've never had, and this is amazing in the rail business, they never had one customer complain about the guy.
Wow.
That's pretty remarkable.
That's-
He operates 7.5 miles of track at that location, and he tenders to the BN Santa Fe about 100 cars a month. Pretty small, but that's typical of short line rail operators.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to a relationship with him and moving forward. Our actual agenda item says presentation on Shippers Association.
Right.
So,
There's two parts to it, and I think that we've entered it the right way because this is all connected. How the line will be operated, BN Santa Fe's support of the line, giving us the space that we need to get on their trains. And part of that is the idea I threw at Jeff and your folks was that Shipper Association seems to be a natural for your type of situation because the BN Santa Fe, of course, and the short line operator will be thrilled if the shippers in the town get together and combine their freight and start to move it toward them. That'll be a clear sign that we're really interested in developing greater velocity of freight in the area. Shippers associations are really straightforward. They're really antitrust protected, nonprofit cooperatives that negotiate and manage transportation services on behalf of member companies. You won't be involved at all. In fact, under the federal guidelines, it's a member-owned organization, no liability, therefore, for the city at all. And it's, in terms of setting it up, it's almost other than having us come in and do the other work with the short line and do the work with the BN Santa Fe. It's the fees you would pay us on a one-time basis to organize it. It used to be very difficult to do shipper associations. You required a Justice Department letter and all sorts of other stuff that really was not needed. You did away with that about 10 or 15 years ago, and Justice Department, Department of Transportation reserves the right to come in and inspect the fact that you are operating it neutrally. The one component that's key is that you organize a group, a board, and then a group of members and bring them in, and you have to have a neutral administrator, which the board and the members will choose. Somebody obviously there in town or in the area that actually, although they don't have to be, but they administer the project, and the members tell them what they want, how they want it done, and then they are absent from the actual negotiation with either the rail carrier, the truck carrier, the ocean carrier. And shipper associations can negotiate with any part of the freight transportation system, including even things like insurance, truck rates, rail rates, ocean freight rates, warehouse distribution. Depends on what the members tell them they want done. And it's obvious, I think one of your council members is in the trucking business, I believe. And what I think that individual would know immediately, if you have more freight, you get better rates. It's just a simple equation that's there. So what the association does, and it's really best for the medium-sized and small companies, although it has some applicability to some of the little bit larger companies. In aggregating those volumes, they're able to go to the table and negotiate with a lot more strength. And they're able, therefore, to get much better rates. And a good example would be people in town who are in the area, the regional area, who might be shipping less than container load, and they put themselves in with an association. You build full container loads of freight or full trailer loads of freight, and therefore you get a much better rate to wherever you're going. The shippers don't lose any control. They still operationally are involved with their freight, how it moves. It's just that there is this neutral administrators in the middle in terms of the actual negotiation of rates, so there's no collusion on freight rates and that type of thing. Go back to one other thing, just to make sure I got it clear there, is that there's no, other than that initial cost to you of having us set it up, after that it's self-sustaining because it derives, the administrator derives their income from a fee per move. That fee is decided by the board and the members of the association and negotiated with the administrator. There's usually a fee up front that's fairly modest from each of the members as they join to help support the initial budget of the administrator. But in the main, the administrator doesn't make anything after that except what is generated through the shipper association. There's no I don't believe, by the way, just switching back to the line for a moment, which I understand is going to be owned through a blind trust, there is no liability because the short line operator will assume all the liability for the line. I'm sure that Judy's probably already filled you in on that. Membership benefits are that you get the aggregation of volume and the lower rates. Usually runs between 10 and 25% lower. In some cases where rail service has not been good or there hasn't been a facility to get these things done, some of the initial savings run as high as 40 or 50%. That's because some of the areas, like up in Flagstaff, Arizona, we had one of these going, and the savings in some of the small towns around Flagstaff was as much as 40% on transportation side. People like the Columbia River Shippers Association have had a pretty steady 25 or 30% savings for their people for a long, long period of time. The Shipper Association is not bound by any geographic confines. You can truly make it regional. You can reach beyond the region. TOYSA, which is the Toy Shippers Association of America, really has nobody in their headquarters town, which is Cincinnati. All of their members are someplace else. So you're totally unrestricted by that, so you can reach out to the neighboring communities in the region, or reach even further than that over to where Moby Rail is, for example, and ask his customers to come and join your association. Once again, you're giving them some real advantage. We've seen these things work very, very well. They work actually better with single commodity groups, so I'm being honest with you. But they work just as well, or pretty well, with mixed commodity groups, which I assume yours will be. The other thing about the Shipper Association that I think is good as a benefit to the city, once you're going to be able to, I don't know if there's any other word to put on it, you're going to be able to sell the fact that you have a facility within your town or within your city to be able to offer rate reductions to companies that want to come and bring new business to your city. And the existing people in the town are going to be able to get lower rates at the same time, all of which I assume will be viewed very positively. I think that for me, the most intriguing part of that is the customer opportunity in trying to attract new business and to put it on the line. The fact that the city has gone out and acquired the line, nobody's going to ever know that it was a gift, that's for sure. It's going to be the fact that you've acquired the line. One, you're picking up an asset. Two, of course, you're going to improve the rail service remarkably. As I'm sure Respondic has told you, he'll be able to reach out and serve just about any place, including your industrial parks, and bring it back to this line and build train sets. Important thing for him, if we can build a volume through the Shipper Association, is that if he can build train sets, the railroads themselves, who ideally would like to run 2,800 miles and stop their trains and never stop in between, they will be able to do what's called hook and hauls, which is he'll do train sets, put them out, and the larger that train set is, the better the railroad is, and better the rail economics are. In other words, the rail rates are improved by that. So all of that sort of fits together very nicely and neatly. And the Shipper Association, I brought it forward to Jeff and Judy, and then to Jill, because I think in your situation it really works. In some places I don't think so. Your rail service has been a little fragmented. This is a way to sort of unify that, bring it together, and to give a certain level of collegiality among the shippers, where they come together and decide that they're going to build volumes that would be appropriate for the railroads, or ocean containers, or trucking, or whatever else that they wish to have.
Don,
I think some tremendous advantages to the parts, and the liability on the part of the city is nothing.
Don, let me interject something here for a
Please,
moment.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay.
I know you're short on time.
No, you're fine. Judy, thinking about what Don just said, would Respondic be doing anything in Progress Park? As he describes it, building a train set, would he be doing anything over there, do you think?
He
Or-
could,
Okay.
if we had something like this, he could, but right now, that's not what we're
Well,
talking
this would be our
to.
first step, but then
Yes.
down the road, it may make sense for him to do
For
something.
him to
Oh,
do that.
Mr. Mayor, may I
Yes.
address that, please?
Please.
He will work out a time schedule with the mainline carrier, and when he goes up on the Class 1's line, he'll be able to reach out, and if there's rail service in those two industrial parks that you have, I believe they're on opposite sides of the city, he'll be able to go and capture that freight and bring it back to the line he's on and build his train sets there. And my guess is if those customers want that service, he'll be able to do it fairly immediately. And it'll depend on the customer wanting it, and wanting to be able to tag themselves onto the train sets that Mr. Respondic will be building.
So they may get quicker service, you're saying, because he'd be putting together a larger group of cars, a train set.
Exactly, sir. And plus the fact not only a faster service, but a cheaper one. Those guys over there, I don't know the volumes or anything else, so forgive me, I'm not aware of that yet. But whoever they are, if they've got a car occasionally, or 2 cars, or 5 cars, or whatever it is, when they come in and Mr. Respondic is building this for us under on this track, at that point in the game, the rail rates are going to go down. because it's not going to be, well, it's not going to be ones and twos and threes. It's going to be 15 or 20 or 25 at a time. And the rail rates will be appropriate for whatever that volume is.
So Judy, this may be a benefit to some of the existing tenants at Progress Park also, it
Right.
sounds like. Maybe not the first step, but
Right.
down the road, okay.
Judy, are both those parks served by rail?
Yes.
Well, then that's a natural. That I think Jill said it to me the other day. We were chatting about this, and she said, "Oh my gosh, we can offer this out to all these other people," and that's the truth. You really are going to be in a position, and this is one thing that's responding. Evidently, from everything I've heard, is a really nice man and is doing a very fine job. One of the things that I would like to do with him, if you bring us on, is I'd like to take him to Dallas-Fort Worth with me and introduce him to Dick Ebel and to Fritz Draper, who's the head of Intermodal, so that he has a different level of relationship with them, because one of the things he'll be faced with is getting space on their line. And we can solve that problem by sitting down with the top guys and saying, hey, listen, this is what we're going to require, this is what we're building, we're going to have a shipper association loading more volume on this, and Mr. Respondic is the guy that's going to make it work for us.
He does have a relationship with some of the people at BNSF.
Right.
I'm not sure who those are. He went with us when we met with them in 2010.
We just moved that up a notch or two,
Okay.
To make sure that Dick Ebel sort of mandates it to his people that it gets taken care of. They probably have a regional guy that's been calling on Mr. Respondic, I would guess.
So, everything we've heard is a positive. Are there any negatives?
Well, I think the negative part about it, the only negative thing I can really think of out of the whole thing is I can't guarantee everything that we're saying will come true. And I say that because I want to be transparent with you about this, is that I can't guarantee we'll make it work. All I can guarantee is that we've been pretty successful with the railroads at getting things done, as I hope you realize with our activity for you on your line. So we'll give it a best effort. We've done this type of work before. We're very good at it. And if you look at our proposal that we sent over, you see some of my people, you'll see one name that'll jump out at you, and that is Pete Rickershauser. Used to be the guy that ran the entire network for BN Santa Fe. Tommy Scherstadt used to run Pacer Rail, which is the largest consolidator of rail in America, 600,000 container loads a year. We've got people that are pretty skilled at getting this type of work done, and that we're connected well enough to be able to help out pretty well. But I do want to say to you, so I'm not way off base on it, we can't guarantee success, but we can, I think, give it a pretty good shot.
Okay.
So there's a downside, it's just that. Other than that, to be honest with you, I can't honestly see anything that's a negative. If I did, I'd tell you. Jeff Bishop, who knows me very well, would tell you that as well. We'll tell you if we think something's wrong.
And the term of the contract is for 6 months, so you feel like these 4 items under the draft scope of work, I'm just going to read them quickly. Meet with the short line operator and discuss budget for rehab, discuss with BNSF donation, assist in the efforts to finalize the budget for the rehab, and then organizing the shipper association. You feel like 6 months is a realistic timeline for accomplishing that?
I think actually I gave myself 6 months so that this is a set price deal. As you read on, you'll see we've reduced our fees by about 25 or 30% off what we normally would charge for a deal like this. I think probably applying ourselves, I need less than 6 months, but I gave myself 6 months in case we run over. We want to make sure that we get it done for you. And what I can't predict is how the shippers will react. And so I want to make sure I have enough time built in there to be able to come back in. If you'll see there, later on, we show you how many hours we'll give you for the amount of money that we're charging. And even though it's a set price contract, we want to make sure you knew we built in enough hours to where the job normally would be about $60,000 instead of $35,000. And so we're doing that because we started this project, and I want to see it completed the right way. And I think by having that, we'll be able to do so. But I don't think it'll take us 6 months to get it done.
Okay.
I think a lot less time than that. But I wanted to build enough in case I have to come back a few other times.
I'm going to open it up for questions to the rest of the council, Don, since you and I have been doing all the
Please,
talking.
I'm willing to answer anything you got.
I mean, Jeff has briefed us on this. We didn't get to read through the entire proposal today, but our plan right now is to have it on an agenda. We have another meeting next week, and it's potentially going to be on that agenda for approval, which will give us all time to read it and think about it a little bit more in between now.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time today to chat with me, because that's a good lead up to your meeting, and hopefully you'll see your way clear to approving it so we can get to work.
Any questions at the moment, gentlemen?
Mayor, I just want time to read it.
Okay.
Behind on my homework.
Judy, do you have anything you want to add, or?
No.
Okay.
There is one thing, Judy and Jill, I did send over some documents on the American Association of Shipper Associations, and I hope you'll give that to the council and let them take a look at it. It's an official deal that comes out of, there is an association for shipper associations. And that might be valuable background reading, as the gentleman just said, in terms of doing homework. Whoever that gentleman was, I would tell you, as I said in the beginning, the one beauty of the Shipper Association thing is very straightforward and simple. I have asked Jill if she would, when time is convenient, if she would have a word with the city attorney and just ask if there's any state regulations on shipper associations. We can discover that later. It won't be anything onerous or difficult, but each state, a lot of states have individual regs for shipper associations. Easy to comply with, but we want to be sure we know what they are.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
David Anderson's here now, our city attorney. So David, if you come
good
across.
afternoon, Mr. Anderson.
Well, I would be happy to call you tomorrow or the day after and discuss it with you to make sure that I'm looking at the right materials.
Fine, that's great.
okay.
You may not find anything because in some states there are no regs at all. In your neighboring state in Arkansas, there are rules and regs on shipper associations. In Texas, there are, and a couple other places. But it's never anything that's earth-shattering. It's always just something that has sort of a local bend to it, and not anything really to worry about. I
didn't find anything at first glance, but I'll go through the railroad title again and see if I can find anything.
I did have a question for you, and it's more of just an intellectual curiosity. Since the line is owned by a trust, there's, I assume, initially an implied liability, but the short line operator saves us that trouble by taking on the liability. And we'll need to make sure that whoever's writing that contract with Mr. Respondic, that type of clause is in there and that he has the necessary insurance. So once he's done that, do we have any liability against the line at all? The city?
No.
Okay, good. I didn't think so. But I would ask one other thing. When you sign up Mr. Respondic, I assume we're going to get financials from him.
We're making
notes.
notes.
The reason I ask is because, and this is not a very legal term, but the rule of deep pockets might apply. In other words,
Right.
If he defaults, are we liable?
You know the drill when you talk about deep pockets and empty seats, you're always going to get dragged into the courtroom.
Unfortunately, I know the truth of that very well.
Right.
I guess I'm just throwing the only cautionary flag is to make sure we have a nice, solid agreement. I know you'll take care of it. Good, solid agreement with Mr. Respondic.
If you have a model of any agreements as we go through this process, that would be helpful. I'm sure there's indemnification clauses and stuff that
Well,
we
you
can.
have the best resource possible in Senator Brown.
Okay.
There couldn't be anybody better than her. When we did the Coos Bay deal, I was commissioned to go after the line and do the other stuff, the normal stuff we do, and get the railroads to the table. Sandra Brown was the hero of the hour, in that she got us through all of the problems that was an awful deal. I mean, we had a rail carrier that literally shut down a line overnight and put a couple of thousand people out of their jobs. Sandra was the bulwark of that, of making sure that everything was done correctly.
Yeah, I have no pride of authorship whatsoever, and I'm more than happy to lean on anybody who's available.
Well, she certainly understands the railway law and how that works, and she's been, what I've seen of her work at close hand is remarkable. She's really good at it.
Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
Yes, sir.
Don, I think that's probably it for tonight. If we need to during the week, we'll have some intervening conversations, but we'll take this next week to just review the document closely and think about what you've said, and we'll be back in touch.
Thank you. Please feel free to call or email or text or whatever feels good for you, and we'll respond immediately and give you the best answers we possibly can.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Thank you so much for your time, everybody. And the council, Judy, Jill, thank you again, and Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Don.
everybody.
How do I hang up?
On the left, there's a little phone. Hand.
There you go.
Call ended.
I say Chuck and I met, and Jeff met with Jerry Respondic, and I'm pretty sure that Jeff's already talked to Sandy Brown about the contract with Jerry Respondic.
Okay.
That was discussed, and they were gonna get in touch. She was gonna get in touch with Jerry.
So the
And
one
that's been about a month ago.
I think there's been some contact with her. I think Jeff had indicated that there had been. And I don't know if I was in the room with Jill. I just seemed like I remember, or maybe he told me.
You came in for
Yeah,
a
I
little
came
bit
in
when
y'all
Jerry
were
was there.
Sitting there talking.
Right.
Okay. So if you'll take time through this week to look through here, the one, given all of the potential benefits, and of course he's not promising success, but given all the potential benefits, it seems like a value. Now, the one thing that Judy pointed out was some of this work has been done, meet with the shoreline operator, discuss budget for rehab, and so we might be, and so that begs the question, well, can we negotiate a better price? Maybe so, but I'm still okay with him going back through that process with Jerry personally. Just
Yeah, I know
we
he
need to be
has,
successful.
Yeah, and he has talked to Jerry. Don has and everything.
And
so.
I don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. This is a
Right.
major thing, and if we can make it happen, he can make it happen. Collectively, we can make it happen. It'll be a big deal.
Well, and I think it's going to be more. I think Jerry Respondic will be very interested in this too, because whenever he had met with Blitz previously, Blitz was obviously getting more cars
Right.
than Hopkins and Scepter are together, and when we met with them, when Jerry and I met with them, I think it kind of put a damper on things just a little bit. But Jerry's always said he sees so much potential on that line, and even our other lines. So he's still willing to come in here and not make a whole lot of money at first. But Scepter and Hopkins have both indicated that they're going to expand if they can get the rail.
Right. They've got to be able to get their costs down, get
Right.
raw materials in here, and if they can, I mean, they haven't signed anything, but they've indicated that they certainly want to expand.
Right.
So, and then I was excited to hear about the possibilities for Progress Park too. I hadn't really thought about that.
Right, and Jerry and I talked about that before too, but we were kind of trying to get this other one done first.
Yeah, I thought,
you know.
but that potentially would help out there, or maybe help us attract more development.
Right.
When he's talking about train sets, is he talking about incoming freight or outgoing freight or both?
Both. He's talking about both. Because the first time I talked to him, and I know then he talked to Jeff also, about the potential of this Shippers Association, and I said, well, it wouldn't work just for Ottawa County. It would have to be regional. It'd have to be Delaware, Craig, maybe even go up into Missouri and Kansas and everything.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the freight's not gonna get any cheaper. I
Right.
mean, you better look at all your options.
Right. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Jerry Respondic yet about the Shippers Association. I was gonna visit with him about it.
How does that work? I mean, what they want to do is get different companies involved to see what they can rail in or
Mhm.
rail out.
Right. And you can negotiate to get a better cost for the freight lines. That's the main goal. And he also talked about it in the Shippers Association. You could include trucking, and then of course he mentioned the ocean, but even maybe the Port of Catoosa. So.
Okay. Well, between now and next week, please take a look at it and go ahead and put it on as an action item. Jill, I don't take action next week, but let's make sure we have the option to. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
I think that takes us to item 10, executive session, and
Mayor, did you want to go to 7 first?
whoops, let's skip 7. Oh, yeah, I did. Other new business, if any, which has arisen since the posting. Any new business? No. There being none. As I was looking at the subsequent agenda items, I'm not sure there's a reason for executive session. I'm not sure there's not, but I thought we might take the other items in order, and then we could determine if there was a reason beyond that. David?
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense to you?
Makes perfect sense. I think I might be able to address many of your questions in open session.
Which is preferred, so if we can. So we're gonna just skip over item 10 for now and have the option to come back to it. Item number 11 is just accept notice of intent to separate from employment of city manager Jeff Bishop. Of course, we all received email last week from Jeff announcing his intent to separate no later than a date certain of 12/31, but sooner if he is to find other employment. And I think this affords us an opportunity, and we'll talk about the hiring process in a few minutes, but it does afford us an opportunity to perhaps have some overlap. And I think that would be beneficial in any community. There's always things going on, and it's hard to just pick up a ball cold. If you could have a month of overlap, I think that could potentially be beneficial. So I guess for right now, I would just entertain a motion to accept the notice of intent, and then we'll start talking about the process. Do we have a motion?
With agreement on your advice for overlap, I agree, and I'll make a motion to accept his separation employment.
Intent to separate, okay?
Intent to separate.
And a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Thompson,
Aye.
Sharbit,
Aye.
Weston,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye. Item number 12 is review of city manager hiring process, and I think that David, and I know it may have been a little late for some of you to see, sent out a little bit of information, but I also took the liberty to go to the city charter, to go direct to the charter and give that to Jill.
Okay.
And they copy the relevant portions of the charter, and I'm just going to review those quickly. I've highlighted the key portions, and then we can talk about how we're going to proceed. City manager, appointment by city council and utility board, that's section 8. The council with utility board's voting participation shall appoint a city manager for an indefinite term by a vote of a majority of all members of the council and utility board. Shall choose him solely on the basis of qualifications. At the time of appointment need not to be resident, et cetera, et cetera. And so basically the first sentence says it all. The council with the utility board's voting participation shall appoint a city manager for an indefinite term by a vote of a majority of all the members of the council and utility board. There's 5 council members. There's 5 utility board members, but the mayor serves on both. In this case, the chairman of the utility board serves on both, which gives us a net of 9. So now let's talk about the selection process. Subparagraph 2. The city council utility board shall appoint a screening committee that will recommend candidates to the city council and utility board for consideration. Said screening committee shall consist of the following: the mayor, 2 council members, 2 members of the utility board, and 2 at-large members of the city. And those at-large members are chosen by the 2 council members get together and nominate a person or choose a person, and the utility board members get together and choose a person. If they're unable to agree, then the entire board shall select the appropriate at-large member. Going over to the second page, I've copied the portion that talks about the Public Utility Board. It shall consist of 4 members, so should be electors within said city and be chosen equally from 2 political parties, casting the most votes for governor at the next preceding general election. That board hasn't met in a while, and we've had 2 members rotate off. Willie Painter has rotated off, and drawing a blank. And Bobby Carter's rotated off. The current members are myself, and Randy Wilkins and Bob Tyson. And one of those is a Republican and one of those is a Democrat. So according to the charter, we have to find a Republican and a Democrat to replace them. In addition, I don't think I'm supposed to be serving as a chair of that because I'm now mayor. When I was appointed to it by the mayor, I wasn't. So what we really need to do is appoint a utility board, a council member as chairman of the utility board, and then appoint 2 utility board members. Doug has served on the utility board before. I asked if he would be willing to serve as chairman of that board, and he's agreed to do so. So it's my intent at the next regular meeting to propose Doug as the council nominee for the chairman of that board. We'll still then have the task of appointing 2 utility board members, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. I'll present, probably at that meeting, present those names to you, and it's up to you guys to approve those appointments. Then we'll have the utility board seated. Doug will conduct a meeting, and then from there we'll choose. I say choose. I think.
Well, the utility board will designate 2 of its own members.
Right, that's right. Thank you, David.
Yes, sir.
The utility board will designate 2 members, and the council will designate 2 members.
Correct. Yes, sir.
In addition to the mayor that will serve, and then we go through the at-large process. So the first steps are I will nominate Doug Tuesday, assuming Doug is approved, and you can vote on your own nomination. I only say that because I think we need at least a majority, and right now we're 1 person short. So then we will go through the process of appointing utility board members, and then we'll have a collective meeting among the group to talk about the process. Now, it just occurred to me as I was saying that out loud, and also included on page 3, just so you can see the board as it was comprised, and expired terms and party affiliation, which just gives you in writing what I had articulated. So I had item 13 on authorized mayor to begin. I'm jumping ahead a minute, or a little bit. We're going to come back to 12, but I guess it's all kind of related. Authorized mayor to begin city manager screening committee selection process. Well, that's really nothing more than everything we've talked about, because the utility board has to put forth their 2 people. Now, and then all that gets voted on by the entire body, as I recall.
That's true.
So if the utility board nominates 2 people, in theory, they could not be put on the selection committee, and the utility board would then have to put forth other names. That has happened on occasion, but hopefully we'll have everybody on the same page. So when I was talking to Jill about drafting this language, I had to authorize the mayor to begin city manager's screening committee process. So, I mean, we can have a vote on that at the appropriate time, but it's nothing more than what I've just described. And then item 14, authorize mayor to contact search firms to discuss and possibly initiate a city manager search. Now, David, let me see. I'm finished with item 12 unless anybody has any questions, because I have a question for David later, but I'm finished with the review part. Is there any questions of it?
No.
And you may not have seen it yet, but I did forward an email this afternoon that just describes the process again.
Yeah.
And then, before we take up item 13, because I don't know that there needs to be a formal authorization, but probably, authorize mayor to contact search firms to discuss and possibly initiate city manager search process. I'm not sure who has the authority to really make that decision. In the last two searches, Mayor Brassfield initiated a process wherein we did what I'm going to call a self-search. I don't know that that was voted on or anything. I just remember that's what he wanted to do, and that's what we did. The last time around, Mayor Ketcher wanted to use a selection firm, and that's what we did. I think that was a superior process. So I had hoped to go ahead and contact SGR and bring them into the loop right away. David, I'm assuming, not on my own authority, but I'm assuming the council has the authority to do that without
Yes.
having to involve the utility board. Is
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay. That's what I wanted to be clear on, that we don't have to wait till the whole 9 board is combined to make that determination.
I think that's clear from section 1 where it says the council, comma, with the utility board's voting participation, comma, shall appoint.
Okay.
And you're spending city dollars, so I believe that's a council function.
So, any thoughts on, are we in agreement probably that we want to use a selection committee? I mean, I think, or not a selection committee, a selection firm, search
Yeah.
firm.
I think the last one did very well myself.
Yeah, I thought they did too. So, I guess I'm asking for a vote on number 13 to authorize the mayor to begin the city manager screening selection process, which we really have to do anyway. We need to get those things filled.
And please bear in mind, any contract that a firm might present for their services will come back before the city council for a vote on the approval of that contract.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve mayor to begin city manager screening committee selection process.
Is that a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Johnson,
Aye.
Weston,
Aye.
Sharbit,
Aye.
Schultz.
I don't know if I vote on that or not. It
You
is,
can.
It's not an appointment, so.
Now, you
Okay,
can vote.
aye. Item 14, authorize mayor to contact search firm or firms to discuss and possibly initiate city manager search process. And again, if you approve that, I'm gonna contact SGR, because we had such a good experience with them last time. Unless I get some really negative vibe from them for some reason. If I did, I would come back to you, but otherwise, I would ask them to forward a proposal for us for review,
Well-
probably at next week's meeting.
Well, this would give you the ability to search other firms if you wanted to.
Yeah,
True.
So.
good. Yeah, I mean, if we got a really negative vibe for some reason, we could, or they said they're too busy or whatever, we could go back and take a look at some of the other firms we used.
Okay.
I motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
roll call?
Sharbit,
Aye.
Weston,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye. So I'm gonna go back now to executive session. I mean, we've accepted Mr. Bishop's notice of intent to separate. We've authorized the beginning of the hiring process. I don't really know if there's anything else we need. I don't know that if I had asked for that to be on there, just out of uncertainty of what might come up or not. But
For me, it was just a placeholder in case you
Okay.
needed it, but I don't have any legal reason to encourage you to pursue it, independent of your own request.
Well, Mayor, the only thing this email I got concerns me.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
No, don't worry about it. That's just an attorney-client communication discussing legal principles, and we can certainly discuss that, but it has absolutely no bearing on whether or not I think there should be an executive session.
Okay.
Well, with that in mind, then I'm going to, I'm just gonna pass on item 10. Item number 15 is future agenda planning. Anyway, we had some good reports from Kim tonight to give us an idea where we are on the health insurance thing and on the salary study. I know we're all anxious to get that information so we can make informed decisions. There being nothing else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
And
Since
a
I'm
second.
sitting.
And a second, please.
Second.
Johnson?
Aye.
Weston?